Welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of the Women of Rock Oral History Project podcast. I am your host, Tanya Pearson. This week's guest, Lynn Breedlove, is a founding member and vocalist of the legendary homocore band Tribe 8. He also started a ride-sharing service, Homobiles, serving the LGBTQIA+ community in the Bay Area. Without further ado, here is Lynn Breedlove. Do you go by Lynnee now or Lynn?
Well, Lynn is, I guess Lynn is like the literary name, and then nom de plume, and then Lynnee's more like the music name.
Okay.
Lynn fucking Breedlove.
Okay.
Breedlove.
Yeah.
There's a fucking giant fly in here buzzing around. So if it gets super loud, just let me know. I'll chase him out or something.
I haven't heard it yet, but
Okay, good.
All right. So do you want to get started?
Sure.
Ready? All right. So first question is, where did you grow up?
I grew up in the East Bay, San Francisco, East Bay, Oakland, San Leandro, Alameda is where my dad worked a lot, so I hung out there a little bit.
Okay.
And then when I grew up, when I got older, I lived in Oakland and Alameda a lot.
Okay. And when you were young, what did your parents do, or did you have siblings?
I was an only child, and my dad was a teacher, basketball coach, a park recreation director guy, and my mom was a secretary.
Only child?
Yeah, I had a lot of attention.
Yeah. It's like,
yeah,
that might explain a lot. I don't know.
Well, I needed a lot of attention. I expected a lot of attention, but it turns out they're really busy.
Yeah.
So I'm just making up for lost time now.
And like, what kind of kid were you? I'm talking like, we're not even at high school yet, but were you outgoing? Were you shy? Were you creative? Were you cool? Were you not cool?
Oh, I was not cool. I was not a cool kid at all. I had no friends. I was weird. And I think everybody could see right away there's something not right. You know, the gender thing. People are like, no. And then I was bicultural because my mom's German. She's raised in Nazi Germany. And she was constantly like, we're going to the library. You're 3 years old. You're learning the alphabet. You're going to learn to read. And then we're going to babysit you by leaving you at the library. Other people will be like coming to kindergarten and be like, we watched TV last night. Did you see the TV show? I'm like, what's a TV? I don't have a TV. They're like, oh, something wrong with this guy. So yeah, it was weird. I was very busy telling my dad's jokes. I would listen at the door while they were having their little cocktail parties, you know. Mm-hmm. And I would try to tell my dad's jokes at school because everybody's laughing at my dad's jokes at the party, but then tell grown-up jokes in second, third, people are like, huh? So yeah, I was having a hard time connecting with children. I had a lot of adult pals. I hung out with my mom a lot. She would drag me off to Europe, and then I would come back and I would be speaking all these languages, and I was like always getting put ahead and reading, and kids were like, fuck you, you're smart, what do you think you are? You know, Americans, they don't appreciate that. Think you're something. I didn't think I was something though. I thought I was weird, and I was like, Mom, why can't I just get a TV so I could have friends? I feel like if I could just blend in here, it'd be better. She's like, no, you are Lynn Breedlove. You are. I was like, I don't care about all that. Just let me have friends. Jeez. Anyway, so didn't happen for a long time.
Yeah. And your mom and your dad didn't see you being weird and not having friends as a bad thing.
No. My mom, she was an only child too. My dad was the oldest kid, and he was a good kid. And like, I wanted braces in 7th grade. I was like, everybody has braces. And she said she had this thing that's called 0,15, which means .015, which means average. And she's like, if you get that, you'll look like everyone else. And you have whatever your teeth are going to be how they are. And that's going to show that you're an individual. I'm like, what? This is dumb.
Yeah.
Like everyone. Anyway, yeah, they were all about like, be yourself. I'm like, who the fuck is that? I don't even know who that is. I was really busy looking outside of myself for validation, acknowledgement, and when you do that, apparently you do not know who this is. But like, I mean, most people, probably most children, aren't being asked to do a lot of self-reflection, especially in America. But my parents kind of, I would say they just allowed a lot of space for it because they left me alone a lot. I was a latchkey kid and I did a lot of reading. So.
And you mentioned, this is obviously a question that I had that would come up later, but that you were aware of like kind of gender stuff at a really young age. Did you have words for that? Did you see anyone you didn't watch TV, so no media. Did you read about anyone or maybe see some like reflection of yourself, or did you just feel totally alone at the time?
Well, when I was little, I think I looked at my dad and I was like, this guy's in charge. He's the calm one. This other lady, she's all out there. Woo! She was a little ungrounding. And I was always having to take care of her. So I guess my dad was also taking care of her. So she was a party animal, and so I think I just looked to my dad and was like, I don't be like that guy. That's what my mom's interpretation was. But anyway, as soon as I could talk, I was like, my name's Johnny. And they were like, no, that's not right. Well, it was the 60s. It was the early 60s. And people just didn't have any language for that yet. I mean, I just looked around at dudes and I was like, yeah, that guy. I like that guy. He's got a pompadour, white t-shirt. I like that. So I had no interest whatsoever in dresses. And yet I was always finding myself in them because my mom's like, no pants, just dresses. I was like, huh? So no, it was confusing. But yeah, as soon as I did start to see some TV or read, there's articles about Christine Jorgensen. There were not a lot of articles about trans guys when I was a kid growing up, but I would definitely see queerness on TV. I noticed there was something off about Barbara Stanwyck in Big Valley. I was like, and then there was this, what was that show that was Lost in Space? The weird old guy, he was gay. So gay. Mm-hmm. Vincent Price is so gay. What's up with all the pronouncing of the S's? I was like, yeah. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, I didn't even like it, really. I was like, there's something wrong with these guys. They don't fit in. I don't like that because it reminded me of how I didn't fit in.
Yeah. And you mentioned, so like moving into high school, were you a good student? Were academics something that were like important to your parents? Did you plan on going to college? Were there any expectations that they had of you?
Oh yeah, my parents were pretty sure I was going to college. And so I just was like, okay. I mean, I told them when I was a kid, I was like, hey, you know what, you guys, I want to be a poet. And they were like, oh my God, no. And they were like, that's nice. But, why don't you be a lawyer? They work with words too. So, and they make money. And I was like, okay. So yeah, I did well in school because I tried to avoid subjects I was crappy at. I cheated my way through math. I was terrible at math. I avoided any like higher level science. Mm-hmm. My dad taught at my school. I even avoided his class because he was a social studies history teacher, but he gave a term paper and it was really hard. And I considered taking his class just because everybody really liked his class. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do all that work. I'd rather get stoned and borrow dad's keys and fill the station wagon full of gay guys and go to the bars and get drunk. Yeah, it was,
okay.
So I managed to get good grades, but what?
When did you go from being the nerd with no friends, hanging out at the library, to getting stoned in high school and hanging out with gay guys in your parents' car?
Well, when I was 13, I don't know. I hung out with a couple of girls that were also outcastish, but kind of, let's just say that, most of the girls that I hung out with were on the periphery, but also kind of weirdness started to become cool at some point, like 8th grade. I don't know what. So anyway, I was at a party. Someone passed me a joint and I was like, tried to, I didn't know what I was doing. They're like, you're not inhaling. You have to inhale. You're wasting it. And all this. And I'm like, okay. So anyway, I eventually, I figured it out. And then I realized that I was really funny when I was stoned and I was relaxed. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know, there was an audition and I got the bit part with the most laughs, like least amount of work for the most amount of attention. And I got that role. And then suddenly, I don't know, I was popular and people were like, hey, Lynnee, in the halls. And I don't know. Then I just started acting out in class more and more. And then everybody just thought I was funny. Class clown,
Okay. So pot was the gateway drug to popularity.
Yes.
Okay. And so you said that you mentioned to your parents that you wanted to be a poet. Would you consider yourself a creative child and teenager? Did you write poetry, and was creativity something that was encouraged in your household or discouraged?
Oh, it was encouraged. I mean, nobody was pushing me into the kind of classes that I want. Yeah, I got some poem published in the local paper that was to my cat. Mm-hmm. There was a bunch of couplets. You're the cutest cat I ever saw. Anytime I hold your paw or something, second grade shit. And my mom was like, you're in the paper. I'm like, okay. So that was her thing. She was always like that about if I got accolades, she was happy. She didn't really care about it. She didn't really get the art that I made, I don't think. And then, but yeah, I think I spent a lot more time reading than writing, though. I think it was a time of filling the well. And
what kind of art were you interested in?
What kind of art was I interested in?
Yeah.
Oh, well, when my mom, she deliberately got a job to save up money so that she could take us to Europe every couple of years, because my dad wasn't really that interested and he had other things to do in the summer. And she just missed home, and she's like, I want you to come with. And so we went to a bunch of museums and she would be like, come on, we gotta go and hurry up. And I'd be standing in front of every, painting and sculpture and be like, whoa, taking it in. I was really into the visual aspect. And yeah, classic art, visual art, paintings. I like that shit when I was a kid.
And what about music? Did you, were your parents, was there music playing when you were growing up, when you were in high school? What was your, I don't know, some favorite bands, or did you care about music?
I hate it when they're like, what's your favorite bands in high school? Because they're so dorky and nerdy.
Oh,
and
see, I know. No such thing as a guilty pleasure. Nope. It's all important.
I know my punk rock pals are like, I was really into New York Dolls. And I'm like, I was going to play with Mac. But
that's cool. I know it wasn't cool. It's cool now.
I love Fleetwood Mac. I still do. I'm not embarrassed. That's punk rock. It's if you're that punk rock that you could admit that you like Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
But I also, there was music. There was a weird conglomeration of my parents' records. And I would play that on the record player and spin around on this little Danish modern swivel chair and read the album cover, you know. And my mom had this kind of compilation of American and British and European hits with a DJ in between being like, hey, and that was the Beatles, that was the Supremes, that was the Righteous Brothers. And I'd be like, wow, cool. So it was like smattering of that. My dad had a Mamas and the Papas records and a Herb Alpert record, which I didn't really like. But I like Mamas and the Papas. Plus, there was like, just that kind of thing. Just like whatever they gave me, you know. And then I started listening. I got an AM radio when I was it was probably about 69. And I started to listen to that under my pillow at night. And at that time, all these different styles of music would be mixed up on the same radio station. So it'd be like Sly and the Family Stone, Tina Turner, but then there'd also be, you know, whatever stupid white boy band, you know. And so that was cool. And I remember walking home from junior high one day, I saw this like 45 record kind of in the bushes, and I had a big chunk taken out of it, and I picked it up, and I just kind of discovered Led Zeppelin, but I would hear them on the radio, so I didn't really know who they were, but I liked their sound. And then I put this on my record player at home. It was Hey Hey What Can I Do on one side, which was never a hit, and it was actually a B-side. The other side was the Immigrant Song. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I got Black Dog, and then I just listened to Black Dog every day for like 5 years. I fucking thought they were so hard, you know, Led Zeppelin. But then I had a bunch of gay guy pals at school. We were just out recruiting. We'd like meet up at recess and be like, I saw a guy, he has an earring. We're gonna get him, be in our gang. And then one of my pals, Chester, was like, gotta listen to this band Queen. And I was like, whoa. So it was day at the races, night at the opera. And I was like, what the fuck? This guy's badass. And he's like, yeah, he's gay. And I was like, no. Guy can't be gay. He rocks too hard. What? They are too rocking. Gay people are, you know, like Sylvester was starting to be big. He was on the radio, and he was at the discos that we would go in with our fake IDs. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, you can be gay and rock out.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
That was kind of the beginning of everything else.
And then, so what, I know nothing about your post high school life. So what did you do? Well, I guess number one, did you graduate? What did you plan to do after high school? Did you have any plans? And what did you end up doing?
Well, yeah, my parents had this whole plan that I was going to go to college. But then in my junior year, I did so many drugs that everybody had to call me aside and be like, you know what? If you don't pull your head out of your ass, you're not going to college. So, you better, straighten up, fly right. So I did. And, but I didn't get, the valedictorian straight A shit. I have been getting A's, like a A-, B+ average, whatever that is, most of my life. And then because of that deep dive into mescaline, acid, mushroom, whatever, just out there, whatever people gave me, I just ate it. Then my junior year, so by my senior year, I had to pull it out of that nosedive. And so then my parents were like, okay, well, you're going to college now. So where do you want to go? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really want to go to college. I'm sick of school. I've been going for 13 years. I'm not. I'm going to join the Army. And they're like, what? No. And I was like, yeah, bye. So, I joined the Army. and for just the reserves.
Okay.
I wasn't going to go shoot people. My plan was, in case they wanted me to go shoot people, I would just go to Canada or something. But I was a half-assed motherfucker. But yeah, and then I learned how to climb poles and string wire, and I was going to come back and work for PG&E, but then I don't know. That didn't really work out either. So then I don't know. I worked at a gas station for a few years, did a whole bunch of drugs. I was a drug dealer. Yeah.
I mean, that's it's like a lucrative business. You're never going to not be in business being a drug dealer.
Well, let me tell you, there's a rule in drug dealing, which is never do your own product. And I actually thought I was such a great businessman that it was such a brilliant idea for me to be dealing drugs, because then I would just have free drugs. And then all of a sudden I didn't sell any drugs. I did them all. And then I couldn't pay the dealer. And then I got fired from the dealer. And then as I was looking over my shoulder, it was just bad. So eventually also I had a friend who was like, hey, you know what? Let me help you. Here's a giant pile of cocaine and a whole bunch of rigs, and let's just get high. And then you can also sell this. It's not really your drug of choice, so you won't get in trouble. Then that's when I had to quit entirely. So we can all thank cocaine for bringing us to our knees.
Yeah.
And I, as a result, been clean and sober for 31 years. So that's good.
Wait,
but first
what?
they did
I didn't know that. I've been clean and sober for 14 years.
No way.
Yeah. I love talking to other. I didn't know. Yeah. I had no idea. That's awesome.
I almost died first. And I had to get that close. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, and then you can never get that high again. You have to get that high in order to be high. But if you know that if you get that high, you might die. So you're always like kind of backed off of that amount of high. And then it just doesn't work anymore. And it's not satisfying. So you just have no choice but to quit. All
right. Well, I might recruit you after this to leading a Zoom meeting for 3 months. So if you want to speak, it's like a musician's meeting. Music,
cool.
Creative people. Yeah. But I'll email you. Wait, so all right. So that's even more interesting to me, because so your whole career, everything that you've done and accomplished, you've done it sober and clean. How old were you when you got clean?
31.
31. Okay. And then like, where were you living then? And, was Tri-Bait was your first band, right? Were you in okay. Just how did that all happen? So you're in the Army Reserves, you're a drug dealer, you get clean, you're 31. And then where are you, and how do you decide that you're going to be in a band?
Oh, wait. So my parents did keep bitching at me to go to college, and I was like gonna go do their plan, which was go to pre-law and then go to law school and all that. So I did that. I went to Cal State Hayward because UC Berkeley wouldn't have me because of the drugs and the bad grade point average. Yeah. But anyway, I went to Cal State Hayward, and then I graduated pretty decent, Right. Grade point average at the end, but I tried to go to law school at UC Berkeley, and they're like, nah, you're competing with people from Princeton, so forget Cal State Hayward. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, well, I'll just be a bike messenger for a while. That was the tail end of my drug career. And that is what I was doing when I got sober. And so when I was delivering packages to lawyers, I realized that those people didn't look very happy, and I didn't actually want to be a lawyer after all. What I wanted to be was a bike messenger. So about 8 months into my sobriety, I don't know, I was at some 12-step meeting, jumping around, yelling some song I made up that was funny. And then all of a sudden they were like, oh, that's good. Write 5 more of those, be at my birthday party in a week. And so, I don't know, I got a bunch of my friends, and there we were. Tri-Bait happened. Silas Howard and Kat Buell. And Kat was drumming and Silas playing guitar. And that was us, the 3 of us. Then we saw Leslie Ma at the party. And we were like, hey, we need a bass player. He plays bass, and then Queegis, Les's girlfriend, they both have mohawks. They were all scary looking. And Queegis was like, right here. And then we were like, yeah, you're in. And she was like, I don't want to play with these guys. They suck. Actually, she'd already been in a queer mo punk band called Anti-Scrunti Faction in Colorado. And so she actually knew what she was doing with bass. But since we all sucked, she said, I'm gonna play guitar because I don't know how to play guitar. And then we'll all suck together. And we're like, no, we need somebody who doesn't suck, man. And so then she got Mahia Kobayashi to play bass, who was great. And thank God we had somebody who knew what they were doing. So
yeah,
that's how we got started.
And what was so did you get started in the Bay Area? Was this in Oakland or?
Oh yeah, San Francisco. At that time we were all living and working in San Francisco when it was affordable to do so.
Yeah. What was the scene like there, aside from, were there other, because you guys are known as like the first queercore band. Were there others at the time before you? Did you have peers, or like what was the scene like in general when you were starting?
Well, I think that the thing that stood out most to me in retrospect is that if you wanted to hang out with queers, you had to go to a bar where probably possibly a lot of disco was going to get played, except for this dyke bar where I was dealing drugs. They had like an MTV situation up on the wall, and they would be playing Sweet Child of Mine and all this like rock and roll. There was a bunch of dykes playing pool and shit. So that was cool. But as I looked around, and I did see like Killer, who was the drummer for Typhoon, which is kind of this goth band. He was super awesome. I thought the singer was really cute. And I was like, wait a minute, that drummer with the flat top, that's a queer playing rock and roll. Okay. Check that, file that away. So like, that kind of thing. I was usually the only dyke at the punk rock show, and I was surrounded by a bunch of straight bike messenger dudes. So for us to just like kind of pull that together was based on like us liking Led Zeppelin when we were kids, or being like, whatever fucking weirdo spandex glam rock band, Bon Jovi, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I didn't see anyone else like us around at the time. But right after that, there was a proliferation because everybody came out of the woodwork when we jumped up on stage. And they were like, yes, thank you. This is what we've been needing. That's what we like. So then everybody started doing it. Not like we started it. It just was like what is that thing? There's some kind of phenomenon. What is it? 100th monkey, or you're just on a wave.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The wave is just already happening, and you just happen to be the first guy to catch the wave. But
yeah. And I just want to talk a little bit about your particular performance style, we'll call it. It's really, I love freaking out. I teach college classes too, so mostly like pop culture and queer history. And so I always show live Tribe 8 videos because you're shirtless, you've got the strap on. And I mean, most of these kids are like between 19 and 22 and just don't know what queercore is. Like maybe have heard of Riot Girl. And then I'm like, look at this band, Tribe 8. And they're like, oh my, wait, what is this? And yeah, so just thinking about like, I don't know if that, I'm just like, how much of that decision was influenced by, like Led Zeppelin and that kind of like the cock rock thing. I mean, were you deliberately like flipping a script? Were you just trying to be funny? Was it political, or was it all of the above?
Well, the last like 5 years of the 80s, I discovered Black Flag, and I was just like yelling along to Six Pack and gimme, and fucking into a hairbrush or a beer can or something, like I was like, these guys are fucking funny. There's like this energy behind them, just and but ironic, like say the opposite of what you mean. Like it took me a minute to figure out that he wasn't actually meaning that he was going to have a six pack, but he was really straight edge.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that those 4 white guys from SoCal kind of thing started to be my main influence.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we played some dyke bar in London once. It was kind of it wasn't really a dyke bar. It was just like, you would go to a straight bar and then you would have a dyke party there. That happened a lot.
Yeah.
And this chick came up after we were done and was like, "You're Iggy, you're Iggy, you're Iggy." And I was like, what? And then later, I mean, I'd never seen, videos of him live, but then much later I looked and I saw what he was doing, pictures and videos, and I was like, oh yeah, I can see where I had a similar vibe that he was doing. But I feel like I was just kind of like soaking in it, and I just kind of picked it up and ran with it. But yeah, definitely, I just started doing it because it was fun and because I was fucking pissed. I was mad. And I think that's what a lot of punk rock energy is about, is just anger. Or that's proper receptacle, The proper receptacle is channel it through art, don't punch people. And yeah, I was mad. So there was, and just hanging out with a bunch of dykes in practice space and like, or if all your pals are at the show and they're all a bunch of dykes and they're all mad and they're all whatever, it's like, yeah, well, let's improv that. Well, let's bring a rubber dick next time. Well, let's fucking bring a knife. Let's chop up the rubber dick. Let's, it's like, it just one thing led to another. And it was really the audience a lot of time just egging us on. Like I had a rubber dick on the fucking tour and I didn't cut it up until like, I don't know, 3/4 of the way across America. I think we were in Lexington, Kentucky. And they were like, cut it off, and yelling and freaking out. And there was a swarming, swirling mass of sweaty punks. And they were just like, kill. And I was like, okay. It was a song about rape revenge, gang castrate. So I was like, all right. So I cut the balls off. Then when we got to New York, ran into these guys and they were like, hey, look what we got at the show. And I was like, what? So then it just became a thing. And then we just have to bring a whole bag of rubber dicks that we got from Good Vibes all the time, because you cut off the balls in one show, you cut off the dick in another show. You got to make sure that you got the blow job before you cut the dick off, because you got to cut the dick off first. Then you couldn't get the blow job because then you just have a bloody stump. And it's like it was a whole thing.
And yeah, I also wanted to ask, so, well, number one, how often did you tour? And number two, was the reception always good? Or did you have, I mean, I imagine that, in certain areas, maybe it wasn't as inviting. I don't know, that kind of show, but maybe not, I don't know.
Well, weirdly, the people usually ate it up. It was the cops. There was always every now and then somebody in the crowd, somebody's parent or some I don't know who, conservative type would call the cops, and then it would become a big thing. And there's no such thing as bad publicity. And so we had like all these clippings of Tribe 8, banned in Bloomington, banned in P-Town, banned in wherever. P-Town, right? It's like, what? Put your shirt on or we're going to shut it down. So whenever they did that, then I would seize the opportunity to make a big speech about censorship and how, I see there's many male members of the audience do not have shirts on as it is a hot day. However, since I have tits, apparently I'm going to put someone's eye out. So therefore, I'm going to suffer and put my shirt on. I hope you're all happy now. Whatever. But yeah, we toured probably, well, at first we used to try to tour in summer or winter. Then we realized that the vans that we were renting, the one we got in summer, like the heat was always permanently on. The one we got in winter, the vents were like frozen open. And we were like, okay. I said, you know what, you guys, we're only going to tour in fall and spring. That's it from now on. No more of this. Because we're used to the Bay Area temperate fucking weather. So this was not working for me. But yeah, 6 weeks on average in spring and fall each.
Yeah.
And then one time we stayed out for 7 weeks and we almost killed each other. So we were like 6. It's got to be on 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's probably a lot harder in a van too. It's not like you guys are flying around or in a tour bus or something. It's pretty close quarters.
Well, yeah. I mean, Silas and I were just talking the other day about how, well, the bonding that happens because of that, when you are all crammed together and you're in your own little culture thing, pod, and you're traveling through these hostile territories, like everywhere you go, it's like people are hating on you. You know, you might be going in the wrong bathroom. You're going to get kicked out of that bathroom. It's going to be humiliating. You might get beat up, all this shit. That by the time we got to the venue, sometimes we'd just stay in the van and sit and talk for another half hour. Or we'd go in, we'd sound check, and we'd go back to the van because it was home, you know, with each other. So Tantrum would like want to sleep in the van because that's how she got grounded. She was like, this is my home. All my shit is in there. I'm sleeping. And we on the shelf, we called it shelf. It's like there was like this built-in loft thing, and we put all the equipment under it. So that was like hidden from view. And on top was a futon where we would like slide in. And so there'd be like 3 people slid in. But, you know, if you slammed on the brake or something, we'd all go shooting out the front windshield. Fortunately, that never happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. I mean, once you've been on tour with someone for that long in a van, like the people that roadied with us and stuff, they're your family forever. You know what I mean? Because you've been through some shit.
And what about touring? How often did you tour outside of the United States? Like you toured Europe, didn't you?
Yeah, we toured Europe a couple times in the early 90s. And now they invited us to come play Euro Pride 2000. That was kind of amazing.
Yeah.
We're on these floats. We're on a float with some punk rockers that lived in the old papal guard fucking fortress called Forte Prenestino. And they were like gnarly punks, and they all were dressed up in drag, and they had flown in these trans ladies from New York, and we were like raving through these like ancient ruins of Rome. It was just insane. There was like a million fucking queermo Europeans throwing shit at us and yelling. It was best pride ever.
I don't know how to say this and like not sound like a dick, but it comes up a lot in interviews where just like Europe, they just have better taste than like Americans. So that sounds like a really big event. And did you have a bigger audience over there, or was it about the same? Like, how were you received in Europe versus, touring in the United States?
Well, okay. First of all, I don't know what better taste is, but those first 2 tours that we were on, there was a lot of us opening for bands like MDC. You know, I love MDC. They were great. They would like, the people were all there to see them, but Dave would get on stage and be like, after all Dave's bands would be standing in the back like, fucking one of these fucking weird dykes and fucking fuck them. And then Dave would get up there and go buy a fucking Tribe 8 shirt right now. And they'd be like, okay. But there was a lot of standing staring at us. And every now and then you would get to some punk show where dudes, Germany, Italy, wherever, they would just be moshing in an insane pit. And they'd be like, you guys are amazing. Yeah. But a lot of times it was just standing and staring. Or like we played this place that was in the recently reunited Germany. It was just on I don't know, 100 miles into the east side, formerly east side at that point. They did not like us at all because they were kind of stuck in the 70s. Their hairdos, their outfits, everything was like 70s because like they were blocked off from any kind of, information about what other people were wearing or doing or listening to or what was funny in America or what queers were doing. And there's me running around chopping up rubber dicks, strutting around and swaggering, and they were just hella mad. They were like, I was like, why are you mad dogging us? I don't get it. They did not like us one bit. And the guy came up after, some guy, the sound guy or something. He's like, think you're something, huh? Think you're fucking something? In German, you know, and I was like, no, it's kind of all a big joke. I mean, yeah, I mean, we're bitching about patriarchy and rape and shit like that, but what, you didn't like it? He's like, you're shit, I hate you, and all this. And I was like, wow, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know.
Oh. And then just, I do want to know a little bit about, like, I like knowing about fans' experiences on record labels. So, so Tribe 8, you guys were on Out Punk and Alternative Tentacles, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, both like pretty, I think technically independent labels. Like I don't know, Alternative Tentacles like seems bigger to me, but I guess technically they're like independent labels. Just what were your experience? What was your experience being on those labels? You know, positive, negative, somewhere in between.
Well, both were great. First of all, like the fact that anybody signed us at all was kind of like amazing to us because we were looking at bands like, you know, Bikini Kill. And of course, everybody loves Kathleen, you know, because A, she can sing, B, she's cute, and C, she's straight. So, you know, it's like, what's not to love? Well, we were like, hey, fuck you. I'm a dude. Also, I hate dudes. Fuck you. I'm going to cut up a rubber dick. How about these? Titties. Can't have them. Ah. Everybody's like, no, no one's signing that. You know, but every now and then you'd run into some dude like Matt Wovensmith, who's gay, Jello Biafra, who runs Alternative Tentacles still. I think he's either come out as gay or bisexual since then. Anyway, he gave me a blowjob.
I always thought he was gay, so I don't know.
He's actually gay. He gave me a blowjob in public in the early 90s at Clubstitute. Yeah. Which was like a queer mo punk bar. And I was like, okay, there you go. You're fine. Yeah. And then he asked us if we wanted to be on AT, and we're like, yeah. So then a lot of times we get matched up with bands from AT, and so we'd be playing Madison with some crazy noise punk band, and all the frat boys would be there to see them, and all the dykes would be there to see us. And it was like a crazy mix. I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was cool. There's still, toward the end, guys were still coming up at the end of the show. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, because you're on AT. We love AT. And so you're in town. So here we are. We want to buy a shirt and see me. And I was like, all right.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
People are very loyal to Alternative Tentacles.
Yeah. Which is good for you.
As a gift.
Oh, I remember what I wanted to ask. I had a brain fart. This is really boring, but I like to know this. I like to know how bands or how you survived as a working musician. Did you work other jobs while you were signed and touring?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did? Because see, like growing up, I'm a child of the 90s, right? And so I just thought you were all famous and didn't have to work. And so it's been really disturbing for me the last 7 years doing all of these interviews and like that. I mean, I even interviewed Exene Cervenka, right? And she was like working as a secretary down the street. I mean, like present day, you know, I'm like, no, like,
no. Yeah. We always joke, punk rock. That's that punk pays. Yeah, not. No, I had a bike messenger service called Lickety Split, all girl courier throughout the 90s, whole decade. And I was bike messenger, or truck messenger, or dispatcher, or whatever, you know. And I created it specifically so that anybody that worked there could leave as long as they wanted, because there was a whole team of us and we would just fill in for each other, you know. But the idea was everybody should be able to leave and come back and still have their job.
Yeah.
Which if I worked at Western Messenger like I did when I first started being a bike messenger, I could only leave for 2 weeks. Well, that was going to work, you know.
Yeah.
So actually being an entrepreneur stemmed from me being in bands and being like, I got to create my own reality here because I can't fit into your reality. So,
yeah. So you've always been kind of an entrepreneur. Like you started the, I can't remember the name, the car service, Homobiles. Yeah. That's pretty new, isn't it? I remember seeing you posted something on Facebook, or maybe like 5 years old or something.
No, we've been around since 2010, August 2010.
Oh, it's been that long.
Mm-hmm. Well, that happened because my mom had a stroke. I was on tour. My mom had a stroke and I got evicted all on the same tour. So I brought my mom back to the Bay. She was in Berlin when she had stroke, and I was on my way to Europe anyway to do my solo show. I was touring the States with Silas, doing our solo shows. And after about a year, I realized this is going to take money. And I actually cannot wrangle her in and out of bed and to the shower and all this stuff. Like, I can't. And she kind of lost her mind instantly with the stroke and was like super angry. And I was like, man, actually, I'm not equipped and I'm fucking doing a shitty job. I thought I was going to be the guy, but no. So then I was like, you know what? She's got a car. I know my way around the Bay. I know how to deliver shit. I always wanted to see what it would be like to be like a taxi driver. All bike messengers don't really retire. They just become cab drivers. And so, yeah, I printed up some flyers, me on it, being like, hi, Homobiles. And I don't know. I just started doing that. Went to gay bars. Mo's getting hosed where he needs to go.
Yeah.
And then by being hilarious, they eventually started to trust that they could get in the car with me. Although I think at first they were a little like, no, you're scary. I was like, no, don't worry.
They didn't. Well, they knew who you were, right?
No, they didn't. No.
Okay.
They did not. They were just like, you're some random fucking dyke in a fucking leather jacket.
Yeah.
And saying you're going to give us a ride. And but one of them took a risk and then was like, that was great. You pay what you want. I got home safe. Person really funny. And then word got out, and then pretty soon it was a thing. And then all my friends were like, I want to do it. And I was like, okay. Just like everything else. It's like kind of like the Tom Sawyer technique.
Yeah.
Don't you want to whitewash this fence? Oh, great.
And you're still doing that now, right?
Yeah. It's totally morphed. It was really much more nightlife centered when we started. And now mostly we get people around that are either going to or from surgeries about being trans, So there's a lot of that. And then we might start helping some LGBTQ elders who also might have mobility issues, and that'll be cute.
Yeah. That will be cute.
Although don't call old people cute. They don't like it. I don't know why.
No, I do. I have one, well, she moved away now. It's really sad, but she is 82, and she was the founder of the Gay Nurses Alliance. And we just met in a meeting. And then I just started taking her grocery shopping and stuff and hanging out. And I was laughing because a trip to the grocery store for an 82-year-old is she's like, now you might want to just block out your afternoon. I mean, it's 5 hours. You know what I mean? I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. I can't handle it. But I do it, and it's fun. And she's got great stories.
Yeah.
And really good sex stories too, which is funny because I was always nervous to talk to old people about sex stuff. But she always asked me about, I'm like, I think your sex life was a lot more exciting than mine is presently. So you can just tell me your stories. I have nothing to tell you right now. But oh yeah. So, well, I want to go back a little bit because I skipped way ahead. But I do want to know how your parents ended up feeling about your sort of musical career. Did they ever know what you actually did?
Yes.
Okay.
They both came to shows. Not a lot, but my dad showed up at a show early on, my dad and stepmom. And there was the usual shenanigans on stage, like our pal Mario get like a blow up doll. She'd be like, have a blow up sheep. She'd be like, Little Bo Peep, fucking a blow up sheep. Or she'd be like, you know, in some boy drag shit, fucking a blow up mannequin that was dressed like a gay guy and fucking it with a knife and then it popped. And then everybody's like, you fuck that was non-consensual. She's like, it's just a skit, relax, it's consent. Anyway, there was a lot of that kind of thing going on. It was always controversial. But anyway, I don't know what she was fucking on stage that day, but my dad was there in his cowboy hat. I looked out, I saw my dad and Pat, his wife, out in the middle of a gang of people. DNA, it's the name of the club. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And I got a little nervous for a second, but then we were just back doing the show, you know. And there's this song, I don't know, we just did all the songs. And then my dad, I looked out and he was gone. And he didn't call for like 3 weeks, which wasn't that weird. But finally I called him. I was like, so how'd you like the show? He's like, it was okay. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, there was this one song where, I don't know. Do you think that I touched you in some weird, inappropriate way or something as a child? And I was like, no. Oh, Dad, no, that song's about loving a girl that happened to and how that's hard. That wasn't about you. You're the best dad in the world. Get out of here. He's like, phew. I was like, oh my God.
It's like that's what he was, you know, it had nothing to do with the stabbing or the blow up doll, but
no, he didn't care. I know, rubber dicks, tits, all the things. All he was like, did I do something wrong? I was like, oh my God. Oh. And then my mom, she would just have a drink and a cigarette and stand in the back and talk to all my pals. And my pals always thought she was highly entertaining. She's kind of Marlena Dietrich type, you know. So I was like, earplugs, Mom. She's like, this music sucks. It's okay. I go home and read the lyrics. I like it better.
I don't know. That's really sweet that they were supportive in their respective ways. I don't know. Showed up to a show.
They tried.
Yeah.
I mean, they only had the one kid, you know, so there's no one to compare.
What are they going to do?
There's no one to go, oh, this guy went to UCLA. How come you didn't go? You know, well, eventually Silas, my mom finally accepted Silas as my sibling. And she was a little bit like, oh, well, he's making movies.
Pretty big deal now. Yep.
He went to UCLA film school and all this. And I was like, yeah, they finally had someone to compare me to.
Yeah.
Too late.
Yeah, and just if you could talk about the sort of, you know, not the demise, but you guys broke up 2004, 2005-ish, is that right?
2005.
2005. Why did you decide to break up? And I do want to talk about your writing career and you toured, you know, did comedy and just sort of that transition.
Well, around 2000, the particular constellation that we'd have for several years, Tantrum, Slade, and Silas, they kind of one by one dropped off pretty quick. Slade went and got married, moved to Southern California, became an accountant. Tantrum was like sick of whatever, trying to live under the radar, no working papers kind of thing. Moved back to Canada. And Silas was like, I'm going to go learn how to I'm going to make movies and learn how to make even better movies. And then, so we changed the lineup around a few times. I think by that time it was 15 years? And I was like, I feel like I'm just kind of doing the same shit I've been doing myself. And although I still love to rock and I love that current lineup as well, always, which was still like, it was me, Leslie, Teresa, you know, like we had a couple different drummers, and then I was like, I actually feel like the in-between songs is the thing that I love.
Mm.
And the rest of my band would be like, let's talk more rock, you know, like, come on. And I'd be like, no, this is the part I like, you know. And then I was like, you know what? I need to just do a solo show without a bunch of musicians interrupting me all the time. I did. I made a comedy solo show, and that's when we just decided. Me, Les, and Teresa got together in a coffee shop, and we're like, should we quit? Yeah. Okay. Should we ever get back together? Maybe. What would it take to get us back together? And we're like, $1 million. Okay. So I was like, well, if inflation keeps going the way it is, that can happen.
Yeah.
But for now, well, Silas was always like, quit while you're ahead. You know, he'd say that about shows. They'd be like, they might want 2 or 3 encores, but just leave them wanting more. You know,
your comedy show, Lynn Breedlove's One Freakshow, turned that into a book, which won a Lambda Literary Award.
It did, weirdly.
Yeah. But then before that, you published Godspeed. So when did you start, you know, like actually sitting down and writing and publishing?
Well, I started writing Godspeed in the early 90s because Anna Joy Springer took me to go see Kathy Acker at this bar where she was teaching a class that she normally taught at the SF Art Institute, but she wanted to make it more accessible. So she taught it at Edinburgh Castle.
Yeah.
And everybody was sitting around drinking beer. And there's a whole bunch of brilliant people who have since either died or become published writers, or teachers like Anna Joy. She's a professor down at UCSD. But Kathy kind of inspired me. I wrote the first chapter in that particular class. She's like, okay, she's going to talk about Decide for a while and fucking Bataille and all this. And then she's like, okay, everybody write for 20 minutes and then read what you wrote. So I wrote like the opening pages of Godspeed there. And since then, Kathy and I kind of developed I wouldn't say a close friendship, but an acquaintanceship. Or whenever we saw each other, we were really connected. And I remember the one sentence that she said to me that impacted me, which I just keep trying to pass on, which is just like, never stop writing. So I got a picture of her up there. She's just looking at me, and I'm like, fucking right. And I'm like, okay. So I started it in probably 93, 94, and then I didn't finish it until 2000 because I'm slow. I'm intermittent because I usually have too many balls in the air. I'm like, I'm going to tour for a while. I might write when I'm on tour, but then I'm busy writing songs. I'm also a brand bike messenger. You know, like there's a lot going on. So it takes me longer than most people are singular focused. But yeah, that was published, I think, 2001.
And what is the, all right, well, I don't want to sound like pretentious, but do you have a creative process, or when you sit down to write, whether it's like for a book or lyrics, is it something that just happens? Are you like struck with an impulse, or are you like regimented? You plan it out? Just how do you like sit down to create whatever it is you're doing?
Well, it's a daily practice. You know,
okay.
It's a daily practice. I usually, when I was writing songs, say for Try Day, I would write them. I would write them while I was being a bike messenger. I was writing, and the rhythm of writing, I would be like coming up with rhymes to pass the time. Wrote this one song I remember was about being a bike messenger, you know, and just like coming up with rhymes, and saying them over and over again. And then whenever I would stop, I like write them down, edit, So that was daily practice. And then when I was dispatching for Lickety Split, that's when I started writing Godspeed. I was sitting there for hours. Nobody was calling because when we first started, we weren't that popular.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there with a pen and like paper because those days you write out. Where do you want to pick up? 100 Montgomery going to blah, blah, you know? So I was sitting there and I had this notebook and I just started writing in it. And actually what it was I found this old accounting book from the 20s that was like this big and it had these lines and it had like a few old cursive lines handwritten in it, some numbers in the first couple of pages and then nothing. And that was something that the feel of it, when the hand moving across the page and all that, that's when I got that really, there's a totally different part of the brain now that kicks in when you write by hand than if you write on a computer.
Yeah.
So I do this thing where I write from the heart by hand, and then I go through and I copy it over onto the computer. And in that process, I'm also editing. So the heart one is full of all kinds of extra words and maybe not words that are that great. I might like, oh, but we could add a word for that, or one that has this kind of rhythm to it, you know. So in the editing process, that's where it becomes a piece of writing that somebody else might get something out of.
Yeah. Yep. I know what you mean. Going back and forth. Oh, okay. You mentioned, and I think everybody knows how expensive the Bay Area is now, especially San Francisco. But I'm curious as to, like, you've been in the area for so long. How has the scene changed, whether that be like art, music, literary, just the sort of creative scene in general since you started?
Well, I'll just say it, social media killed the punk rock star. You know, it's like when we were starting out, if you wanted to do something, you wanted to communicate or connect with your friends, you went to the local bar and saw the local band play at the local show. That's what you did, you know. Mm-hmm. And now you don't have to leave your house to connect with pals. You don't even have to pick up the phone. You don't even have to talk to them. You just heart emoji. You know, come on. Who goes to shows? There are some old punch. I have some punks. I have some pals. Their band called Middle Aged Queers. And Sean, the singer, is always like, I am going to kill myself if we don't have a show. I can't hang. Lockdown, no. And there's a song right there. Yeah. See? That's my process. Oh, I just made a fucking thing rhyme. I'm gonna write that down. But not to be one of those people that laments, oh, it used to be this way, but I don't. I usually am like, well, it's this way now. So now we can make videos. We don't even have to leave the house. So one of my bands that I'm in now, Commando, when we started the lockdown, me and Juba Kalamka, who's one of the singers in the band, we each made our own videos of our own songs on our phone and then sent it over to John Sanborn, who's this old MTV video dude who's brilliant. And then he, in his studio, made each of our 10 phone takes of us doing our songs into these amazing videos. And nobody had to leave their house at all. So that's the brilliance.
Yeah.
You know?
How many bands are you in right now? Oh, you're in 2 bands right now. Yeah. Commando, and what's the other one?
The Homobiles. Branding.
Oh, that's still... Okay, because I just thought that sort of mutated into the ride sharing service. I didn't realize.
No, the Homobiles, the band was named after the ride service. So
that's smart. So is being in a band, like, would you consider that like a part of your identity? It's not like, it doesn't sound like you could take it or leave it, because even when you're writing, you're still like performing in a band. Or, I mean, how important is it to you to like to play in a band still?
Well, I'm finding in COVID that it's actually crucial to my fucking sanity. I have not been on stage with a mic in my hand yelling with a bunch of pals for a year and a half. And a year and a half ago, my dad and stepmom got murdered. And so I'm like having to deal with gnarly grief, trauma shit, and I don't have anywhere to put it except to sit with it, which is fine. In as much as like murder is fine. Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. I mean, it's been fucking gnarly, of course, but and having to sit with something like that has its own merits, you know. But at some point, I think it would be nice to just be able to yell. So I've had to like, okay, I'm just gonna have to yell and practice songs alone in my house, because when we do get on stage again, I got to be ready. So, and that's actually helpful, but there's nothing like the energy loop that happens when you're on stage and you're like a conductor, only instead of a symphony, you have a mosh pit, and you get the people in the crowd to start doing that. You're like, that's like, it gives you the energy, and then like you give it back, and then it just keeps building, it's escalating, and it's healing.
Hopefully soon be able to go out and play again. Let me see. Oh, I keep getting things. I have like a question in my head, and then I don't write it down and I forget it. Obviously I'll edit this out, this part. I can't fucking remember what I was just gonna say. It's so annoying. Maybe it'll come to me if I move on. Okay. This I'm just always like curious about, because it is so kind of difficult to just even, you know, make any kind of living doing music or anything creative. Did you ever intend or hope to like cross over into any facet of the mainstream and be able to like make a living writing or doing music? Was that ever even on your radar as you were shirtless, having some young boy in the audience suck your dick? Like, were you like, this is going to be on MTV?
No, we're pretty sure that, I mean, it was because we're on the periphery that we are getting any kind of attention at all. So on some level, why would you want to give that up? I mean, I remember we played some fucking Stubbs barbecue or something in Texas, in Austin. And it was all these cowboys, you know, just a bunch of straight dudes and their lady friends. And afterwards, they were like, oh my God, you guys are outrageous. Whoa, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, we're just doing our thing, just being us. It's how this is our life. Yeah. And I was just like, yeah, being punk, being queer, you know, doing that shit. We were just talking about our lives. Yeah. And that was so crazy to straight people. And Rolling Stone magazine had us as like the next big thing one year. I think it was like around 98. And there's a little picture of us. And they're like, watch out for these guys. And I remember having a conversation in the van one day where we were like, should we, could we, will we, but is it selling out? But is it the right thing to do? But could we make any money? But will they just shelve our product? And then fucking we'd be really fucked. And that happened to fucking Bomb. Remember them? And, just, we ended up, it wasn't even a choice because nobody was banging our door down.
Oh, okay.
Well, we were thinking, what if they do though? We'll be ready. And I'll have an answer by the time they do. Well, they never asked.
But you still got even closer than most people get with a little blurb in Rolling Stone. So that's a good
I know, we're really excited. We bought the hype for a minute. We thought, oh shit, we are the next big thing. Then we're like,
that's so funny. So I have a few questions that I ask everyone at the end. And then we can go back and like fill in any gaps or if there's anything that I totally left out. But my first question is, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but how do you feel about your role in and contribution to just rock and roll history as a whole? I think you fit in.
Way to put a guy on the spot. I mean, what's the guy supposed to say? How do I fit in? How do we fit in to rock and roll?
Yeah. How do you feel about your role in or your contribution to rock and roll history as a whole?
Wow. That's a very long history. I
know.
It goes back to Africa.
Yeah.
Like in that probably 200 years ago or something. I don't know. But if you just want to, start with blues men, let's say, of the 50s.
Blues women. Yeah.
And women.
Yeah.
Blues men and women.
Yep.
Blues people.
Blues people.
Blues musicians.
Yeah. Blues musicians.
Let's just say that. Well, I'd say that as far as I'd say there's probably a turning point in the early 90s where queer musicians started to be out. There have always been queer musicians. There were always straight musicians acting queer. There was like Little Richard that everyone knew was queer, but couldn't be out. And fucking Freddie Mercury came out, on his deathbed or some shit? So we were part of that turning point of homocore.
I think that's very,
which is, it's good because I feel like the real edge of rock and roll is authenticity. And if you can't talk about your real life and your real feelings, then where's that? You're singing someone else's life, someone else's songs. I mean, there's so many straight musicians that were look at Etta James. Bisexual, rumored to be, possibly queer. Singing about, being sad about some dude marrying some chick. Well, was she sad because she was in love with the chick, or was she sad because it's kind of it's a little blurry there for a minute, I feel like a lot of people played with those innuendos and stuff, but they weren't allowed. They wouldn't have been able to have careers, and I think that's no longer real. I mean, look at Lil Nas X and a whole bunch of other people. They're out and queer and being like, yeah, what about it, pal? And I feel like the job of all us, we're punks that we're we don't care if we get famous or not. We just need to yell on a mic about whatever, queerness. I'd say that we had a hand in making space for that, for everyone to be their authentic selves, regardless of gender or sexuality. I hope. but also, I mean, so many spaces that we were trying to make space for at the time, as queer feminists, which was about race and class as well, you know. Yeah.
Just going off that, you mentioned Lil Nas X, and do you have any, I mean, just what do you think about the sort of like influx of these younger, like mainstream queer artists, I guess? Or I almost think in a way, like, I never want to turn into like the angry old curmudgeon lesbian, right? Because I think visibility is so great and I get so excited. But then I'm just like, isn't this commodification like just the total antithesis of like being queer in the first place? I don't know, like corporate kind of commodification and like selling stuff, branding, you know. It's like, I don't know.
Well, I think it's more about visibility, you know.
Yeah.
Like the more, or like Harvey Milk was like, just come out. If you come out and everybody's whole thing is hinged on like, I don't know any queers, they all suck, they're terrible people, they need to die. But if they're like, oh, well, I know one, oh, my neighbor, my kid, my friend, okay, well, I guess I can't hate them anymore. So the more that people see queers talking about being queer and trans and whatever on social media or whatever, it's in their little light box in their pocket all day, what are they gonna, how are you gonna hate? I mean, haters are gonna hate, clearly. But and commodification, there's a book out now called How to Do Nothing.
How to do nothing.
How to Do Nothing in the Economy of Attention or some shit like that. Yeah. And it's just talking about what people have been talking about for thousands of years. And right now, it just happens to be that corporations are using our attention and our belief systems and our need to connect with each other to make money. Well, back in the, 2,000-3,000 years ago, they used religion. They're like, well, if you do this and you believe that, then, we'll let you build this pyramid for us. And then maybe you'll get to wherever heaven. I mean, just they're always like trying to manipulate the populace into doing their will because they're bored and their lives are empty. That's fine. Lil Nas X made himself. Mm-hmm. Like we're commodifying ourselves, kind of like Madonna. People always bitch about Madonna, but I used to really think that she fucking kicked ass when she was like just kind of a self-made woman. She was a stripper. She was like,
oh yeah, no, I love Madonna. Yeah, I can't say
I'm
bad about her.
I'm just going to use this, and like so many young queers of color right now, the Lindas, I don't know if they're queer or not, but they're children.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if they know yet, but yeah.
They don't know. But
yeah.
Yeah, but like just everyone, POC, trans people, just we don't really care if you use our image and commodify it and make money off of it. I mean, there is a thing like about Spotify and Bandcamp and all this the ways that musicians can't make money anymore unless you go on tour and sell t-shirts. I mean, that's kind of fucked up. But I'm not going to stop playing music because I'm not in it for the money. Never have been.
Yep. I like that. That's a good soundbite. All right. So these last two questions, right, I sort of reword them if I'm talking to trans or genderqueer musicians. So just, well, number one, I guess I'll ask this first one just in terms of this project. So what are your thoughts on the visibility of women or of trans people or of gender nonconforming people, whatever, but their visibility in rock history as a whole? Are they not fairly represented? Is it better now than it was years ago? Is it like a non-issue?
Well, the mainstream is always gonna be the mainstream. And I think that trans people are really well represented in like film and TV right now. That's great. And that's because it's almost more accessible now. There's like a million TV shows and a million, you don't have to just pick, you don't have 3 channels anymore. So there's like unlimited amount of media out there, which means there's space for trans people and trans people's stories to be told by trans women of color, to be told by people who invented Vogue that are still alive. Like, that's amazing. In music, there's like Against Me, and there's like all these like queer and trans bands, but we're still probably mostly on the periphery. And live bands, just unless you are X and you play Stern Grove, we just don't have that big of a draw anymore. And that probably the only way that we're going to get the kind of visibility that, I don't know, that could work is like with social media. Like Commando is probably going to have like a big social media presence. Because it's like you have a live show, it's like 100 people, but if you post your video, you can have 1 million views.
Yeah.
So, and I think who's going to represent queer and trans musicians it's no longer in the hands of corporate media. It's in our hands. So the potential for us to be more represented is greater now than ever.
You're making me feel more positive about a lot of things. So thank you. Because usually I'm like, I hate I'm on it, I use it, but I'm like, social media is the downfall. I don't know. I just feel like, there's that meme of like the angry possum, and it just says like, old lesbian curmudgeon. Like, I feel like the possum sometimes, and like I don't want to be that way because I am very optimistic about a lot of things, but yeah, I do feel like I'm just older in my soul than I want to be sometimes. I also want to know how you feel about yourself and your role as a trans musician and performer and writer. I would say activist.
What's my role?
How do you, I guess, yeah, if you want to, like, if you could define your role, but also how do you feel about that role, and how important is it to you?
Well, I would say, as an only child, that wanted friends and didn't really have any because I was weird. I will say that weirdness has actually paid off. My parents were right. It pays off in the long run, just not right now. And the long run is, especially again with social media, like there's so many fucking weirdos out there, and there's so many activists. There's climate change activists. There's like people that are fighting racism and like around the world and are like fighting injustice everywhere, and they need creative, I don't know, inspiration. They need a break. They need to hear a song about it. That's what folk music has always been about, is like Woody Guthrie, Arlo Guthrie, those guys be like, let's sing a song while we're taking a break from like fighting the cops, That's what it's for.
Yep.
So I feel like that is kind of my job. I'm the radio clown. And also I have to pay the rent. And as we already determined, music and comedy, at least my kind of comedy and music, do not really do that. So I will probably continue to create like little nonprofits that serve the underserved communities and have fun doing it. You know, I mean, I feel like you're going to spend 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day or 15 hours a day doing something. It better be something you like. So I hope I hope my primary role in life is connect with other humans and say, we're all here for each other. And also, if you have talent or skill, then use it to connect with other humans and support other humans that are like you. Because we all fucking need each other. It's not that hard.
That's a great soundbite too. Well, I think maybe I didn't answer it. So that I always ask, what are you most proud of personally and or professionally too? I feel like maybe you answered that a little bit, but
What am I most proud of personally or professionally?
or both. Yeah.
I don't know that I'm necessarily proud. I think I'm humbled by a lot of stuff that I've been allowed to do, that my community has listened or read or trusted me with. They're like, okay, we'll read that book. Oh, that book meant a lot to me. Or we'll get in the car with you. We trust that you're going to get us from A to B, and we like this system. I think that my connection to my community is like mind-blowingly humbling. It's just really good.
Fucking killed it. You killed that answer. That was like, I'm not a crier. That brought a little tear to my eye. Honestly. It's like, it was fucking moving. I'm sure that, it's a long life, can only cover so much in these interviews. But is there anything that's very important to you that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you about?
Well, I'm writing this memoir and have been for 13 years, which is basically my trajectory as a human being. It started out kind of like me, I, and transactional. And yeah, I want friends, I want attention, I have a lot to say, funny, rah, and swinging a chainsaw, whatever kind of person. And then my heart got broken open by some couple of events. And what I learned about that process is what this book is about. And I have mentioned earlier that my dad and my stepmom were murdered by my stepbrother a year and a half ago. And it was mostly going to be about how my mom was raised in Nazi Germany and how she taught me, I have to salute a flag. We had to salute the swastika, and look where that got us. So just anarchy. And then I feel like my dad was like, wait, I need a bigger part in this book, and I have a really great ending for you. So I'm about to send some pages off to an agent. And I feel like, as far as like what you asked earlier about what's really surprising is how great grief and trauma, if we're able to stick through it and ask for help, is really potentially transformative. And you can become a totally different person, and you can be a bigger help than you ever thought you could.
Thank you so much for everything. I feel like I grew up with you. And yeah, it's just really nice to talk to you. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm fucking really excited to know that you've been clean and sober for that long. Because I do need speakers for my my meeting that I have to start chairing on Tuesdays. But I think you're great, and I look forward to hearing you at my meeting and maybe crying in front of you at Al-Anon. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, you
I'm
can
not a
always,
crier.
you can always turn your camera off when you start crying. That's what I do.
Yeah. I'm a very ugly crier. I know. I'm just like, I can't see anything. I like go temporarily blind. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
But
All right.
Yeah. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Women of Rock Oral History Project podcast. The Women of Rock Oral History Project is a DIY, publicly funded archive, and we accept donations year-round. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Women of Rock OHP and on Facebook. And you can check out all of the videos on Vimeo, YouTube, or at womenofrock.org. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.